All right, folks, we are back with the Paradigm Shift Cafe. I'm your host, the Wile E. Coyote. And as I said, God willing and the creek don't rise, we'll have Reed Summers from Boulder, Colorado. And sure enough, the phone has rung. And welcome to the show, Reed.
Hello. Well, thank you, Scott. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for taking time from your, I know, a very busy schedule and your day job and your career. And so we're going to have ourselves a little bit of a chat. Reed, I've introduced you a number of times on the show, you and your father, and we've kind of danced around the phenomenon a bit, but you will be here to inform us more accurately about the phenomenon that's been occurring in and around and through your father, Marshall Summers, or Marshall Vion Summers. We'll talk about that caveat in his name. But take us back quite a number of years. As I understand it, the phenomenon of him receiving divine revelations for our time, called through your society, the new message from God, has been occurring for nigh on 35 years, and we now have 9,000 plus pages of divine information coming in through to humanity. Could you help me to understand how he began, when and how he began receiving this? Take us back to when he was working, I believe, as a teacher for the blind, perhaps.
Yes, well, it's been a long, long journey.
Yes.
For my father, Marshall Van Summers, and for our family, for my mother and I. And it goes back to, it depends on where you want to go back to, really, because the makings of it were even in his early years as a young man. But certainly the turning point when this all really began is when Marshall was working as a teacher for blind children, helping them build life skills and navigate, the challenges of their limitations. And all the while, in this work, discovering himself this deeper process of inner guidance, which seemed to be guiding him in how to work with these students and moving them as well in how they were responding to him and preparing for their own lives. And so this process of inner guidance began for Marshall and took him on a many-year journey of discovering what the source of this guidance is. Where is this coming from? Why do I have this inexplicable sense about things, this certainty, this deeper knowing that I should go here and not there, or this restraint to stop myself from giving myself to this person or this place? Why is this? Where does this come from? We all have this. And so Marshall's early years were really about exploring the origins and the depths of this inner guidance experience. And this inner guidance experience evolved over time for him and ultimately led him to leave his work with the blind and to seek retreat at a very pivotal time in his life, to take retreat in the deserts of the American West, to seek really a face-on encounter with this source of guidance that had been moving in his life for many, many years up to that point. And this face-on encounter, this confrontation, occurred there in the desert, and it was with an angelic presence. And this angelic presence instructed him that he will begin recording a series of messages for the world.
Wow.
And and that series of messages, well, Marshall didn't know what those would be. This wasn't coming from him personally. He wasn't asking for this. This was being given to him, being asked of him by this angelic presence that had been abiding with him for so many years, guiding him in his teaching work, facilitating this inner guidance experience, this deeper knowing for him. And that mandate that he shall record these series of messages were the first stones in the larger landslide of what would become the new message from God, which is a new revelation from the Creator of all life, given to prepare all people in the world for the major challenges and new realities facing the human family as we go forward into the future.
Okay, yeah. I mean, wow. There's so new challenges as we go forward. So we are, according to the new message, we are at humanity and Earth are at a critical threshold. So can you talk about why that sounds kind of daunting, and why is it critical, and why are these messages coming through your father now? Reed, please.
Sure. Well, the major evolutionary threshold that humanity has hit, and that has brought the new message from God into the world and has really swept our family and Marshall into this larger process of bringing this gift of revelation to people everywhere, is humanity's emergence and contact with life in the universe, other forms of intelligent life beyond our world. This really is the greatest event in history, taking place quietly, beneath the radar, but felt by probably nearly everyone in the world. This sense of irreversible change, this increase in the amplitude and the rate and pace of change in the world. Really what's happening to drive that is we have made contact with life beyond our world, or that life has made contact with us here in our world, to be clear. And we have begun this historic process of stepping out into a larger universe of life, a step we cannot reverse. It will change everything about society and culture and religion and politics, everything about our world and how human beings identify themselves and relate to one another and what we do here on Earth. So this major evolutionary step is being taken now, but we are largely unaware and unprepared for it. And even those who are aware that contact is underway are not seeing this contact clearly and are in fact making some grave mistakes in how they're viewing it. And it is as a result of all of that that the new message from God has been given. It really does take a larger event in life on this world to precipitate a revelation like this to be imparted to the human family with urgency, because humanity is racing towards this cliff edge, and not enough people are aware of what we're racing towards, let alone are they prepared for it.
So Reed, you've already gotten into the meat and potatoes and the very the exciting and daunting section of the new message by entering into the contact area. And so the new message refers to the fact that we are in we are in and always have been living within a greater community here on Earth. Now, what you've just said will be met with, on the one extreme, utter cynicism and maybe even edicts of lunacy, to those who have been actually abducted, have seen craft, have had contact, and so on. How are we to understand whether or not the government, whether or why our governments are withholding information, or even conspiracies of outright secrecy?
Yeah, well, for those who are aware of the UFO phenomenon and the other phenomena surrounding it, who have studied that, researched it, read up on it, it becomes pretty apparent that something major is going on. And the deeper you read and the further you look, you start to realize that, no, there is a concerted effort to keep this from public awareness. And there's also a dark side to the nature of the event itself. This is not a beneficial event for people, for human beings. That's what I have come to see when I've looked deeper into it, and I would like to share a little bit of my story getting to this point, so that those listening know
Please.
Who I am, and that it's been quite a journey for me to come to say something like that. That contact is underway, and that there is a dark side to it, and that many, many millions of people are being affected by it, and there is a concerted effort to conceal that reality to the larger populace. So that's a major assertion. I wouldn't expect anyone to simply believe all of that, but for me, it's been a journey coming to know these things, for sure.
Well, and we're not inviting simple belief. We're inviting people to look at evidence that is all over our media, our internet, maybe experiences and talking to others, but also to look into the new message. Can you flesh out a little bit more, Reed Summers, for us, the darker aspect to this? Because we do have a notion from our movies and our media that it's, anything from they could be here to enlighten us or give us greater technologies, they're advanced. But there is a very daunting, as I say, side to this, and as you've alluded to. Can you talk about why they're here?
Sure.
What are they up to?
Well, I think to understand, that's a essential question to ask and to understand. And this is where the new message from God is so important, because how could we know what life is like in the universe? How could we know what our neighbors in space are really doing? Not what some esoteric, message from them received by one person says they're doing, but how could we objectively know what they are doing? We couldn't. It's not possible. And that is precisely why the creator of all life, seeing this enormous unmet need on planet Earth, has taken it upon itself to convey and to reveal what life is actually like around us. And what the new message says about what life is like is that we live in a prosaic universe governed by the laws of nature. In many ways, it is similar to life on Earth, only at a much grander scale with much more diverse expressions. But in essence, all beings are driven by the same needs for survival, the same inclination for power and supremacy, the same inclination to defend and protect. And all beings have a need for resources. Okay, that is the universe, or you could call it nature. That is nature. The universe and nature are not separated. They are one thing. And in this natural universe, humanity exists on a beautiful gem of a planet, blessed with a habitable atmosphere, in a habitable zone beyond its star, with water and mineral and all sorts of resources abundant and available. And that you can see clearly by the level of life that exists on this planet that is naturally evolved. This planet is a rare gem in the universe. That's what the new message says. And as such, all rare gems are sought out by those who seek resources, those who are poorer in resources themselves. And indeed, that is the nature, that is what's driving contact, first contact with us, the native peoples of this world today. We are being visited by forces from beyond our world who made the long journey to get here to planet Earth because of the Earth itself, because of the resources of this planet, its optimal environment, ecology, and the human species itself, because we are also a useful resource, as the new message reveals. And so contact is first contact between the native peoples, us, and an intervening force, or what the new message calls the intervention. That is the nature of contact happening in the world right now. Now, there are other forms of contact that have occurred deep in history and in prior times that were potentially more exploratory or more neutral in intent. But what we are experiencing now, broadly, is not that. It is an aggressive attempt to gain access to this world and its people. And it makes sense when you understand life in the universe as the new message from God reveals it. We are the natives of a South American jungle that has been discovered by resource explorers who bring with them, all of their philosophical and potentially religious hubris to say that we have a right to be here, that the natives are despoiling this place or are inept and incompetent and we would be better rulers than them. All of that. They bring all of that with them because they're an intervention. And we know all about this in our own history in the world of native peoples being intervened with by powerful forces with greater technology who conceal their true agenda and take on either a religious, spiritual agenda, one of salvation, one of being gods from beyond the world, those who have transcended all conflict, so on and so forth. And for those who are aware of the reality of contact, you've heard this. This is part and parcel to the conversation today about contact, which is that we are being discovered by beneficial beings who make great claims as to their spiritual accomplishment and wish only for us to acquiesce. That is what you hear so often, and that is part of the agenda of the intervention, to promote that belief.
Excellent. Thanks for helping us through this, Reed. So what I want to touch on is in the way of bringing some information. Remember when I'd met you before, you talked about some of the things that make it truly revelation or revelatory. That, for example, in this area that we're talking about, that there are collectives operating here, and in other words, there's a wider and a vaster hierarchy in operation with whatever's happening on the ground or in our skies or even in our oceans, where the craft are sort of embedded or residing and operational. But there are scenes even behind the scenes in a hierarchical way, and that, as you pointed out already, it's kind of about resource extraction, but that there would have to be inevitably a kind of manipulative aspect to this. So talk a little bit about the collectives and the rules of engagement, which I find an intriguing area that helps us understand that this is pretty authentic material.
Sure. Well, carrying on from this truth that the universe is nature, and that nature organizes itself into levels of hierarchy. We live in a universe where there are powerful economic bodies representing multiple worlds whose goal is to seek out untapped resources and to tap those resources and bring those online to serve their partners in trade and in commerce. And this is not unfamiliar to us. We know what this looks like. This is what happens with intelligent beings. It's what's happened here on Earth. It's what happens out there in the universe. And I know this is challenging because in my introduction to one of the books of the New Message called Life in the Universe, I termed this experience that some of us have called astro depression.
Wow.
Which is, yes, we don't want the universe to be like this. We really, really wanted it to be better than it is down here. We wanted it to be that illuminated environment where there's enlightenment and altruistic races, and conflict is just a thing of Earth. It's not up there. And we're heading into that. We're going to join that. We're going to join some federation of worlds that, where it's all about peace and equanimity. This is what we want, what the natives project out onto this great unknown, either from our religious perspectives or our altruistic, philosophical belief systems, or just simply from our own frustration about how life seems so conflicted and so upsetting down here on Earth. We want it to be better. And the New Message does not reveal a universe that is worse than that or better than that. It simply reveals the universe that is. Natural. And all of us are challenged then with squaring up with reality. And for many, this is too big a task. They have too many hopes and ambitions and, desires that contact has to fulfill. And so they cannot even entertain a natural universe. But others of us have a more sober view on life. We've been dealing with reality. We're not delusional people. We can face what is, right. and perhaps understand that our spirituality is about navigating what is, with authenticity and honesty and compassion. Well, the New Message brings the same thing, both the reality of life in the universe, and it brings the spirituality, the approach to reality, to bring honesty and compassion to that new frontier of life. And so this is the natural universe we're facing. So I take that as an aside, understanding that for many people this is not what they hear. They hear about, all sorts of wonderful claims of the visitors being saviors, redeemers, scientists, so forth. So the New Message presents something very different. And within that bigger picture that it presents, yes, is this education about how life functions beyond this world. What is it like out there? What exists? And one aspect of that are the collectives, which are these economic bodies, often operating kind of in the dark corners of trade, kind of like the black market does in the world, providing more established and official bodies things that they couldn't gain ethically otherwise. And that collective reality is what we're facing here on Earth. And under the historical analogy, we're facing, the unscrupulous resource explorers, the first few ships from the most desperate nations of Europe to make it across the Atlantic. and they don't care about the natives. They're not here to teach love and light. They've not experienced it themselves. They're here to see what can be gained as quickly as possible for their trading networks before other networks get involved. Right. And so it is a competition between collectives to gain access to the world. And that's partly why we see such a proliferation of channeled messages and messages that seem to come from this race or that race, or this race from this star system or this group of stars, with all these competing narratives about federations, about alliances, about ancient aliens, and that, you know, some other race fathered the human race, owned this planet before us. All just it's become a marketplace. It really does, and it's not natural that there be so many varied and bizarre and really irrational and unbelievable accounts of who's here, why they're here, what they want, and what we need to do. It's become a marketplace with players in the marketplace. And that's what you see at UFO conferences. That's what you see on YouTube. You see this vying for public awareness about the meaning of contact and what we should do and how it links up with our spirituality, you know, which, in all honesty, is much similar to what you might hear me talking about, right? And so it's difficult to discern the wheat from the chaff here. There is a diamond in the rough, and the rough has been polluted so much with so many skewed accounts, which really represent a darker agenda, unrevealed, that it's difficult to discern the real message when it comes along.
Right.
But it's my hope that those listening who do resonate with the reality of contact and who do know within themselves, this is real, this is big, and this has everything to do with me, okay, that there is this resonance with you, the individual. I hope that you will look into the work of Marshall Summers, and the new message from God, because to me, and I can say this to a greater degree than anyone else potentially, having witnessed the entirety almost of my father's life receiving this message, this is authentic. There is no agenda here other than to help humanity see reality and respond to reality with its own abilities. Okay? I know that. I have seen everything my father has said over many decades, and his story is pretty powerful and pretty confirming, and I would like to share a few moments of it because I think it helps shed light on the nature of what is happening through him and the nature of the message itself. It's not just a bunch of audio recordings and books. It's really the story of a man and his small family and a few other people being selected to receive and bring forth a message far beyond what they ever thought real, possible, and accepting the onus and the mantle of that responsibility and doing it devotedly, simply, with a great spirit for many, many years. And I think that speaks a lot about the authenticity of this message.
Well, yeah, again, Reed, thank you for elucidating this very complex but very illuminating. I've been to encampment, and I've met your father and heard him speak, and I can speak to the authenticity. But that aside, we can continue our conversation. I remember your father once reached on his own belt and pulled off his phone and held it up and said, "Don't take trinkets from space." Mm-hmm. And of course, he's got a device like many of us, but he's looking a little further into the medium range future and saying that. I guess what I'm getting at here is it's nuanced somewhere between total passivity. It's been said that a way to control people is to give them what they want. So I think we have to be careful about what technologies we get involved in. And on the one hand, we've got the passivity, and then on the other hand, the Creator is reminding us of the downright importance of freedom itself. Can you talk a little bit about this wonderful document that you have on your website, and that's been constructed called the Declaration of Human Sovereignty?
Sure. Well, this document was drafted by a working group of people who were inspired by this set of briefings called the Allies of Humanity Briefings, which are online and translated in many languages now. And these briefings were received by Marshall alongside the new message from God. Okay, so he's received both a communication from the Creator, called the new message from God, and then he also received this set of briefings. And these briefings were a great challenge to Marshall, because all of a sudden he had to face the reality not only of contact, but that he was being contacted by a group of observers who called themselves the Allies of Humanity, who said that they had come to the vicinity of the world to observe the alien intervention that was at work in the world, and to report on its activities and ultimately empower us, the native peoples, to rally around the truth of this and repel this intervention. Okay, these are called the Allies of Humanity Briefings, which are very interconnected to the new message, and they're very important documents. And they present probably the clearest distillation regarding the truth of the UFO contact phenomenon over the course of 70-plus years. I mean, this is it. This is the essence of what's happening. For those who want the essence and are willing to let go of the tantalizing mystery to become clear about what is really happening.
Or letting go of our fantasies that largely come through movies.
Yes, yes. It challenges those fantasies, but it's refreshing, you know, because finally it's clear and it's true, and this is it, and it's not full of a bunch of fantasy. This is reality, and we can respond to this. It's hard to respond to fantasy, especially if it's coming from yourself and from others. But if there's something real that's very clear and apparent to you, it's much easier and more relieving. You have the relief of response instead of the anxiety of ambivalence and avoidance. You have the relief knowing that you can respond to it. And that's exactly what the working group of people did in drafting the Declaration of Human Sovereignty. They did so with Marshall. And this document is simply an expression of the human family modeled on the Declaration of Independence drafted at the founding of this country, the United States, to say to the universe, we are here, this is who we know ourselves to be, and these are the rules of engagement.
Nice.
And with it, these are the violations of those rules that we have observed.
It's a very empowering document.
Intervention.
Yes, it's a very empowering document. If I can just hold you there for a moment, we've got some more time with you. You're going to allow us roughly another half an hour. Reed Summers, we're in conversation here with Reed Summers, son of the messenger, a messenger for our times, Marshall Vion Summers, and a grand message about spirituality, religion, and alien contact. And we will be right back with the Paradigm Shift Cafe in roughly a minute and a half. Thank you, Reed, for holding for us.
Sure, Scott.
By the students of Lakehead University, our sponsors, and our listeners. At this time, we would like to thank the following sponsors for their continuous support.
The Walleye, the definitive source for information on music, food, art, and entertainment in Thunder Bay. This month's issue is on stands for free now. Find it around town or online and interactive at thewalleye.ca. Definitely Superior Art Gallery. Visit this award-winning artist-run gallery at 250 Park Avenue or engage art at definitellysuperior.com. Mentor Computers, serving Thunder Bay and region for 28 years, servicing Apple, Windows, and Linux computers, and specializing in computer repair, upgrades, and custom computer builds. Find them at 106 Cumberland Street North and Suite 109 or call 345-1995.
All right, we are back with the Paradigm Shift Cafe. I'm your host, the Wile E. Coyote, and I've got Reed Summers from Boulder, Colorado. And Reed, again, thank you for allowing us this time. Now, we also have the Declaration of Human Sovereignty. I encourage people to look at it. It's a very empowering document, as you said, because it outlines our rules of engagement. It says, no, we are the humans, we are the stewards of the planet, and we will not tolerate any manipulation of biogenetic material and so on and so forth. I read it every once in a while just to give myself a little revolutionary boost. But I'd like to get, I guess I'd like to get further into, I remember your father, Marshall, saying, you know, three of them, something like, and please do correct me, something like, you know, what is happening, first of all, see what's going on, why is it happening, and what can we do about it? And so I'll open up a big window here for you to talk about the very empowering material that is the spirituality of all this, which is really divine revelation, and steps to knowledge, and what is this mysterious knowledge with a capital K, and how can we become attuned to it and therefore not as susceptible to what the new message calls the mental environment, which you alluded to earlier about channelings and so on. Sure.
Well, I'll start by just saying that all of this represents a completely new reality. Okay, so there's a lot of new ideas here. It may seem all over the place, right? We're talking about contact, we're talking about spirituality, we could talk about the state of the world, we could talk about many things. And they're all aspects of a new reality that we're entering as a human species, driven by contact with intelligent life and our emergence into a greater community of life beyond the world. So for those listening, really, this conversation on air is really stepping into that new reality, which touches on every aspect of our lives. And it really calls for us, those born for this time, those who know this great threshold has to do with us specifically, that we're not just, you know, observers that just kind of washed up on the shore here. We were sent into the world to participate in this threshold. For those listening with that awareness, I do encourage you, really beyond this conversation, to take the next step and to really go into this new reality, because it will take time to understand all of this.
Well, there's even a revelation called The Calling, is there not, Reed?
So there is.
Yes.
And, well, there are several hundred revelations of the new message, individual revelations given for specific, you know, purposes and on specific topics, and one of them is called The Calling, yes. So, yeah. So, but your question, Scott,
Well, just
remind me of your question. I'm sorry.
No, just we're kind of talking about you know, overall rules of engagement, and you know, like, you know, what is happening, why it's happening, and what do we do about it, and in entering into the arena of knowledge and fleshing out what this mysterious knowledge with a capital K is about, and it's very sweet and amazing material, and it will shift people's. You know, I've actually gone so far as to say to people, if you read this material and if you study it, it will make you more intelligent, more aware. And I'm that confident in it. But maybe you can help me out with it.
Sure. Well, we are entering this new arena of life. Okay, life at every level of expression, much more powerful expressions of power and influence than we're used to. We've lived a relatively sheltered life here in the world. You know, we've been isolated from the universe by and large, dealing only with each other, establishing very deep-rooted traditions here in the world, and really not being forced to adapt very often to challenging new interactions, like with other forms of life. And so now that is beginning to take place. And here in the world, looking out in the world, what do we have? Well, we have hundreds of nations, each with their own deep history and tradition. We have numerous religions. We have thousands of spoken languages. And all of this was really born in tribal settings, okay, deep in human history. And we are slowly, here and there, here more than there, in some places, stepping out of that tribal history and out of that tribal origin. And there's a lot of conflict as a result. And what we are stepping into is a non-tribally based frame of reality regarding human beings. Okay, it is identifying as human before identifying as American or Russian. Okay, it is a one world awareness and identity slowly coming into being, and this is nature stepping back, you know, or up to the 100,000-foot view on life. This is simply the next step. The logical next step, that that the tribes would join to nations, the nations would join into a one-world community and there would be tons of conflict, of course, in that, and that would stabilize. And then what? And that's what the new message. That's where the new message comes in.
That's where it shines. That's where it shines, because there are a lot of us who may be deemed to be sort of idealistic, want this oneness, but yet there will be many that will be lingering in the old paradigm, and the tribal, like you say, the tribal. That's why the analogy that you've alluded to a couple of times about we're cloistered in the jungle, we're met by outsiders. The Europeans arriving at the New World analogy is very powerful, because we know what that resulted in. Now we're still in relationship, obviously the dominant culture with Native and Aboriginal peoples, but we know that it hasn't been a very cheery story. And it's
right.
because one of the groups was not really aware of the intentions of the others. So this is sort of runs to the essence of the new message.
That's so true, Scott. The intentions is the essential thing we need to understand about contact. We don't need to know where they're from,
right?
Because we won't. Impartially, I mean, they may say something, but who can trust that? Downed craft, objects, little bits and pieces from government documents. This is not what we need. What we need is disclosure of the intent of the extraterrestrial presence, which is precisely what the new message is giving to us. Because as you said, Scott, the natives, they could have repelled the visitors. By and large, they had vastly greater numbers. They were adapted to that environment. They had food, water, and other things that the visitors had limited supply of. It was the visitors' ability to manipulate the awareness of the natives to foment conflict and discord between the natives and generate a false narrative as to the intent, the origins and intent of the visitors themselves. That's what was game-changing. And you know, as I was saying before, here we have the Earth, right? Nations joining slowly into this one world community. And here we have this world floating in space, okay? This, as the new message calls it, a young, emerging world. And what the new message says is the destiny of that world is to step out into a larger panorama of life, to be united enough to engage with that panorama of life wisely and appropriately, and ultimately to contribute the gifts of this race called humanity to that larger universe. And we do have gifts, many of them. Some of them are undeveloped. Some of them have been lost and obscured over time. But we are a gifted race, especially when it comes to spirituality. And this is really where the spiritual preparation and revelation given by the new message comes strongly, to the fore.
Again, if we haven't really brought that out properly, so I'm glad you've said we do have gifts, because some people would find this a little bit dark and daunting, but it is made quite clear within the body of the material that humanity, although we are emerging and perhaps somewhat behind in our cultural and psychic development, although those are my words, that we also have these gifts of spirituality, religion, and even emotional depth, which apparently many of our visiting clans do not really understand, and that in itself is can be our strong point.
Yes. I mean, The new message reveals the overall greater track that the universe is on, all told, which is a process of developing relationship between individuals, between nations within worlds, ultimately between worlds. And the contribution of a greater spiritual awareness into that larger community of life that struggles at all levels of separation and discord. And so we human beings, Scott, yes, we have deep spiritual traditions, many spiritual accomplishments in our history. And amazingly, and unfortunately, you might think, the universe has rather a dearth of those things. It is a technological universe. It is a universe of competition, not only, because there are most certainly greater forms of spiritual awareness out there than we've achieved, but by and large, again, it's a natural universe. And the purpose that we hold both individually but ultimately as a human species. And this is what the new message reveals. This is it kind of lighting up the next stage of the road for this race, is that you are meant to become one world. Right. And you are meant to contribute the gifts of your world to other worlds. Now, that's going to be a huge, multi-generational project, right? And to get there, you have to survive. You have to pass through the prosaic natural universe. You have to circumvent the many environmental calamities created here on Earth, largely in a state of tribal awareness or overall ignorance about our one world existence and our existence in a greater community. All these problems that we're dealing with in the world, many of them were created in a state of mind that was inherently group, tribe, tribally based, based in deep history, based on outdated belief systems, none of which accounted for the greater community.
Yeah, so this is really a growing up and a maturation and an evolutionary point for humanity.
Yes.
So,
and the real question here, Scott, for me, is who's up for this?
Right. Who's on the team?
Who listening right now, or who down the road who may learn of all this, who is going to be a part of this and is going to take their responsibility and take on both the challenge of stepping into this as a forerunner for the race, as one of the first to do so, but also one who will gain the great benefit of being one of the first to do so, which is, what that is freedom. Freedom from the outdated script of culture and religion and family. Freedom from an unfulfilling life. Freedom from exhausting yourself trying to be something you're not. You know, the freedom to be what you are, which was a being, a greater being sent into this world to contribute to the world at this exact threshold in its emergence and evolution. And you're here. So it's both a challenge and an opportunity, but the question comes down, who will hear this message and know they must do this?
Who will stand with the messenger?
The gift of preparation that they will need in order to approach it.
So the messenger, who will stand with the messenger, and Marshall and the message have said that even reading and becoming aware of the message and authentically receiving it is walking with the messenger, so to speak, which in itself, walking with the messenger is another revelation. There's a whole series of revelations that address the messenger, your father, this man who's very human, and the lineage that he comes from. And this is where I get very excited and even emotional, because my spiritual path has taken me through Christianity and Buddhism. And it's said that the Buddha was being informed by the unseen ones, that then we had Moses, Christ, and Muhammad, and that Marshall. Now we have Marshall amongst us, and that they're all part of a similar spiritual lineage, great teachers for the planet, and that they now stand with him in the background, so to speak. Can you talk about It must be kind of bizarre for you to talk about the messenger for these times, and he happens to be your father, because I remember you telling about, going up the stairs and putting your ear to his bedroom door. Yeah. That's kind of where I wanted to start, right? And you're hearing this different voice. It actually is a different sounding voice.
Yeah. Well, Marshall's journey is really something special, and I recommend your listeners, go Google his name and watch what he has to say. Hear Marshall directly, because I can tell you who he is to me, right? But I'm his son, and I've seen so much, which is a gift, really, because I've seen his humanity. I have seen Absolutely. A man mysteriously called out of the crowd into the wilderness and asked to live in that wilderness for many, many, many years. Building slowly the awareness of the next great step the human race would ultimately take.
Wow.
But building it in his awareness with almost nobody to share it with. Building it for so many years and even decades until the message that was meant to flow through him and to be recorded and written would be done so in totality, which it now has, almost. The whole message, those 9,000 pages you referred to. And to see this man struggle with that challenge as a human being, and to step out there with all his heart and soul and try to reach people with something so future, so beyond the concerns of most people, that only a very few could respond. And then to go forward with them for some years until more could be reached, and more. And then now, that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
More being reached right now. And so I've seen this man struggle for these 35, oh, let me see, I'm 35, so I could say 35 years. And go through all the stages of what this revelation would require of him, and yet also see, like, flickering through his presence, something greater, which was one who represents the angelic presence beyond the world, who came here to receive their message and render it faithfully to the human family. And I see that too.
Yeah.
And that's what the messenger means. That's what the messenger is, one not only who has brought or received the message, but they come from the source of the message. And the source of the message is this angelic presence that watches over the world and has for millennia, since humanity began, and that watches over life in the universe. This is the great spiritual level of existence beyond the physical, visible, manifest. And it makes total sense that they would send one of their own into the world to receive something this new and this challenging, and to faithfully hold it and steward it for decades, so that you, listening today, could receive the pure message. You can go online and Google Steps to Knowledge, which is the hub of the wheel, the central book of the new message from God, and you can hit download, and what you get is the Steps to Knowledge that were spoken to Marshall many decades ago, back in 1989, in a little humble house in upstate New York. That's what you receive.
Yeah,
so
he actually,
I think having Marshall in the world right now is something very important. And for those who need to meet him, they will know it. They will know they need to meet him. And I urge them to honor that knowing, because what Marshall is a representative of a higher order who sees humanity with perfect clarity and love and wants to bring humanity forward safely. He represents the first forerunner of this awareness in the world, one of the greater community, of knowledge, of the great waves of change, all of it. And he represents the first student of the new message ever. So he at many levels, he represents this higher order. He has been shouldering the reality of being the forerunner for many years alone, largely. He is the first student of it. He is the first teacher of it. He is the man who literally received it, meaning it came through his voice in a state of revelation. So we have all of this in the world while Marshall's in the world. And that's why I do urge people to go see him for yourself, because I think the rendezvous could be important.
Yeah, and the new message does refer to it as a sacred rendezvous. If you happen to be in the world when the messenger, Marshall, your father, is in the world, then go visit him and go to encampment. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We have opportunities to be down in Boulder, Colorado. I think this one this October is probably already booked at this point, but there are
No, I hear there's well, it is booked, but I hear that no matter what, if someone needs to be there, they can be there.
Okay, well, that's you hear. So if you're hearing that, you're kind of on the ground level there. You mentioned the great waves of change. Now, I found again, I've got this question is a little nuanced in it with a couple of parts. Great Waves of Change is a wonderful book. It's a book of revelations that your father Marshall has received, and it talks about the turbulence of the surface of the ocean, if you will, as we're swimming in it. In these times and the immediate times to come, 50 to even 150 years. And Marshall has even nuanced the analogy with we are in the foothills of the great waves of change. Talk about that book is more prophetic. It's more a book of prophecies. Talk about what's happening with resource depletion and conflict and what we need to be aware of and how to meet it. Please, Reed.
Yeah. Sure. Well, starting from a high altitude vantage point, again, we are an emerging world, undergoing these evolutionary changes toward being a one world community, and here we are out in space, amongst a greater community that we know nothing of, but have always been a part of. And through all of our turbulent history and in our present, turbulent times, the Earth is being depleted. And the new message reveals this, that many emerging worlds, such as our own, will deplete the resources of their natural environment because there is no awareness of them being one community on one world. And therefore, without awareness, there are no structures of governance. The religions do not promote it. People identify either as individuals, family members, clan members, tribal members, but nobody sees the whole. And therefore, there's nobody at the wheel. So the train is rushing down the tracks, but there's no conductor. And that's why this happens so often in the universe, that races trying slowly to step out of their tribal origins do not get to the point of having proper leadership and whole world awareness about the importance of their planet and their future as a race. And so our world, same situation. Humanity, same situation. We are depleting the world as if America is all that matters. And guess what? For many people, that's a true fact. America is what matters, or at least it matters a whole lot more than the long list of other people out there. Or your religion matters, or whatever. Whatever the sub-identity that is primary for a person. The unfortunate piece of that is that you probably will not make the compromises that are necessary to preserve the Earth for the human community, the larger one community. And so we are depleting the world at an accelerating pace, and this is creating a situation, a future situation, of great vulnerability in the universe, where we have lost our self-sufficiency, and now we need inputs from beyond our world, whatever they be, whatever resource that is, in order for us to survive. And this basically puts the natives right into the hands of the intervention. The intervention and the collectives that constitute it would welcome a desperate native people dwelling on still very valuable land, okay, rich in resources to them, even if we've depleted our own, who now need to trade, and on very unfavorable terms, for the things that the natives need to survive. And this is where the great waves and the greater community realities come together, which is we are facing an environmental calamity never before seen. We have altered the atmosphere of the world. We have altered the chemistry of the oceans. We have poisoned lands, waters, and airs. And the human population is growing even now. And steps are not being taken commensurate with the time frame possible to mitigate these in such a way that there won't be great pain, suffering, and death in the world as a result. So this is the on-Earth situation. We have generated these great waves. The intervention is not poisoning our airs. They are not heating up our climate. That would be us.
Right. That's on us. I'm glad you've made that point. Yeah.
Some things there.
Yes. Yeah. So again, to the mental environment for a moment, both the incoming mental environment that is causing some of the turbulence in our present world. People are feeling anything from anxieties to depressions to even political chaos. So speak a bit, Reed, to how taking, say, the steps to knowledge or investigating that material can abrogate the untoward forces that may be in our overall mental environment, and creating your own mental environment.
Well, if we stop and ask ourselves, why are people doing what they're doing? Especially the more dangerous things, the more conflict-oriented things. Why is this happening? Well, people are afraid because the world is changing. And they do not understand the change, but they feel it. And they are being impacted directly by it. They are losing their jobs. They are being forced from their homes. Okay? There are mass migrations. There are economies shifting, outsourcing of jobs to other continents, major shifts that are hurting people, and they don't know why this is happening. And so there's a great amount of fear and anxiety and blame and scapegoating, which kind of makes sense if a lot of people are being hurt and they don't know why. So the new message is here to help people understand what is happening and why it is happening. The first two questions. What is happening? Why is it happening? And then it's here to illuminate what it means. Third question. What does this change mean?
Right.
And then fourth question. What must you do? All four questions are being revealed in the new message to help people navigate this so that they do not become a political combatant or a foot soldier for some dangerous movement or vigilante group or insurgency army somewhere in the world. The new message is here to help people to first to understand, and then second to prepare. And preparation in the new message means finding the power of knowledge within you. And knowledge means the spiritual mind that you possess. Okay, the deeper aspect of yourself that is not afraid, that is not confused, and that is fully aligned to the realities of this time. Because that knowledge was you before you came into the world. It's the you that decided to come into a conflicted world.
Right.
So it's not conflicted. And so when you look out on the world, people do not have access to knowledge. They are not responding at the level of knowledge. They are responding at the level of their socially, culturally, or religiously conditioned mind. And as such, how could there not be tremendous conflict? It's a given. And so the new message says what the world needs is the great endowment of knowledge within each individual. And that is what will impact choices that people make, the millions of decisions that are made daily. That will help inspire the level of compromises that will have to be made by all people to say, I can't have what I want. I can't protect only my group. I need to make this compromise on behalf of humanity. See, without knowledge, that's not going to happen on any great level. A few altruistic people will do that, but by and large, people will be driven by self-interest. And their self-interests are currently under attack, so they think, by an unstoppable force of change. And so there's so much finger-pointing and so much conflict. And what people really need is to stop, to not subscribe to some social movement which blames certain minorities, other religions, other political parties for all of the maladies of this time, to realize instead, no, we are in the process of going beyond our tribal past, and we've depleted the world. And there are a lot of people in the world. We're overpopulated. Of course, this is going to be a really hard time. Yes, I get it. I see it now. Yeah. So with that understanding in hand, to then seek the one thing that will both guide you and bring forth from you greater compassion, greater patience, the willingness to sacrifice certain things on behalf of others. And this is knowledge. And so understanding and knowledge, I think this is what the new message is bringing to people. And it's bringing it to them directly, not through an institution or a religious authority. It's bringing the way of knowledge back to people, right into their hands.
Bringing the way of knowledge
back in.
Basically,
do you want to be a person living from a very fearful, anxious place, or do you want to be moving with the power of knowledge in this time?
I know where I want to be. So thank you.
It's not much of a decision, right? When you really see what the decision is.
Oh yeah, and we'll touch on a few more things, Reed Summers, and here on the Paradigm Shift Cafe, we've got a short minute-and-a-half break to butter some CILU bread, and we will be right back, Reed. Thank you very much.
All right.
You're tuned to CILU 102.7 FM. This is What's Up in Thunder Bay for Friday, August 3rd. The Love and Kindness Festival kicks off Friday at 6 p.m. at 401 Swamp Road, Finnmark, Kaministiquia. This is an all-ages festival that runs Friday through Sunday, featuring performance art, DJs, musicians, and a lot more. CILU Radio's DJ Love will be performing on Saturday night. Tickets are $80 in advance or $100 at the gate. The Port Arthur Royal Canadian Legion Branch 5 presents the Country Cowboy Experience, featuring Cash Revival, a Johnny Cash cover artist. It begins at 8 p.m. Tickets are $5. It's for the 19 plus. Toronto artist Holy Grinder and Winnipeg group Pout are performing at the Apollo at 9 p.m. Covers to be announced at the door. It's for the 19 plus. The Foundry presents Summer Splash with DJ Supa starting at 10 p.m. It's for the 19 plus and cover is $5. And House Party Fridays continue at Crocs with DJ Pat Jones. Cover is $5 and it's for the 19 plus.
For more details and a complete listing of what's happening in our city, go to tvshows.com. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned to CILU 102.7 FM.
All right, and you are indeed tuned to CILU 102.7 on your FM dial or around the World Wide Web at www.luradio.ca. And the man that I'm speaking with today, Reed Summers, is the son of a great spiritual teacher in our times who resides also in Boulder, Colorado. And we're talking about the message that he is bringing in and the importance of it for this critical juncture that humanity is going through. We've talked a little bit, Reed, about the greater community and it being sort of the wider matrix of life, if you will, within the solar system, the galaxy, and beyond. And that's a huge picture that's revealed in Life in the Universe, which you, by the way, have written a very articulate introduction to. We encourage people to look at that. But also on the ground here, there's another community term, which is the worldwide community, which is something that the Society for the New Message is really sort of engendering and empowering. Talk a little bit about the worldwide community and what is happening on that front, maybe even some of the numbers that are coming to this. Please.
Sure. Well, we're facing a vast new reality as we step out into a universe of intelligent life, and we have in our hands now a new message from God, here to guide and help us navigate and contribute in that new reality. And there are many people around the world who are finding the new message and studying it. And the new message calls this the worldwide community of students of the new message, people who are realizing this great threshold is here and realizing that this has to do with them specifically, that they are a person of a greater awareness and always have been, probably haven't been able to fit in very well out there and be successful in the same way that everybody else has because they're oriented to this greater future, this greater panorama of life in the universe. And so these people are out there, there's millions of them, and the new message is speaking to them and giving them the steps to knowledge, which is the book of daily spiritual practice, for them to find the spiritual awareness within them and begin to allow this to move them in their life. And this larger group of people is the worldwide community, and they span over 70 countries. And there's a larger group now in the world undertaking this preparation. It's not just you or me. We are not alone in this. We were never meant to be alone. Every day, people are waking up to this reality, are finding the new message mysteriously, and are realizing they need to undertake this preparation. There's nothing else like this in the world, and it's available to them. And so the worldwide community of students gathers at community.newmessage.org, where anybody can go there, join this larger movement of people and discuss, share your ideas, share your difficulties, and be inspired by the example of others. And the worldwide community gathers every Saturday for a very dynamic worldwide campfire chat where we basically open the floodgates and talk about our experience of one aspect of the new message and the new reality that it presents. And then the worldwide community also gathers at what we call the encampment of the new message, which is high in the Rockies of Colorado. It is this October. At present, it is once every 2 years. Very important event an amazing place to meet, many, many, many other people who are like-minded, who see what you see and know what you know, and can resonate with your experience of shouldering this awareness over time in a world that doesn't recognize it, want it, or honor it in you.
Now,
so it's not been an easy journey for any of us, but you're not alone. And the worldwide community of people is gathering. It's very powerful to see that happen.
How many languages, you're speaking of all the incoming students, if you will, or even those that are curious coming to this encampment, how many languages has, I know there's been great work put into this, has it been translated into?
Oh, it's the translation is pretty remarkable.
Wow.
I believe it stands at 25 languages, and there are over 55 students around the world translating right now, every week, and we get updates every week, and you can get that on the community site in one of the news groups there. Every week there's 4, 5, 6 more entire revelations translated into all these 25 languages, and they go up online the moment they're completed. So they're out there, they're available to people. And it's just an unstoppable effort now because of the inspiration of those involved.
Yes.
And these people know this is it. This is what the world needs to hear and to receive in order to navigate what's up ahead.
I definitely feel I would be remiss if I didn't mention your mother, Patricia Summers, your father's life partner. People have commented to me when I've turned them on to the website about her power and what she's receiving too in her own way, her spiritual powerhouse that she is. Talk a little bit about your mother's role, and also too there is a revelation called The Age of Women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, when you get to meet us and you get to know us and hear a little bit of the story of our family, it's pretty amazing. I grew up at the kitchen table hearing stories from my mom and my dad and others, and thinking to myself, in the depths of high school or whatever horrible place I was at that point, wow, this is like the greatest story never told, not yet told. This is amazing. This is happening even as I was growing up. Are you serious? And it was. And my mother worked. Her journey to prepare to meet Marshall, and then to meet him, and then to bring into his space a whole new dimension of the new reality that would later then be revealed by the new message. That's a great story. And you'll hear it at the encampment. We share parts of it every encampment. And she had her own mystery journey of being compelled, restrained, pushed and pulled by this mysterious, unrelenting force that just, and I know some of your listeners are nodding their heads right now, they know exactly what that force is like. It's like something, they're bonded to something already, and it won't let go. And it won't let them give their life away. It won't let them plunge themselves into whatever career or an inappropriate engagement of some kind. It's moving them along. It's taking them places they wouldn't otherwise go. They're having some remarkable encounters in life. And all the while, something is there burning within, telling them, keep going, keep looking. You need to find it. You need the it. You haven't found it yet. And Patricia's life demonstrates that more than any other life I could imagine, of feeling that, honoring it, going through it's not easy. You've still got to do everything you've got to do. Career, family.
Oh, yeah.
There's tough stuff to get to where you need to get to. It's not love, light, healing, and, a great glow around you all the time. It's hard knock.
Didn't Marshall at one point say, I got nothing for you, but I need you. You're connected to this. Okay, the woman's got to be thinking.
He'll have to share that one himself. But he did say something like that near their meeting, which is, I can't offer you a normal life.
Right.
Right, and all that would mean. But what I do offer is the life.
Yeah. There you go.
But it was not easy. My mother worked as a full-time nurse for decades. to support our family, and there were great challenges and trials. It was not easy, it was not sheltered, but it was very real. And all the while, totally, my mother Patricia, she has this special thing, and it's hard to name it.
No,
but it's so special, and it is from beyond the world.
There you go.
It is from beyond the world. It is a gift from beyond, and it is burning within her. And when you meet her, you'll know. You'll know.
You too, yeah, you will, and people get a sense of it even online, as you say. Go to the YouTubes, Marshall Vian Summers. I would like to mention the Vian. It does mean teacher. One area of intrigue that I have and curiosity is also there's so many dimensions to this, as you well know, that there's even a new language that has not been bequeathed to any race or planet as yet. It's coming new in and through the new message, called the Septoral language. Can you speak to that?
Actually, yes. Actually, it's the Celtan language.
So, sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. Septoral is another language that is further spoken of in another series of writings. But Celtan is a language of invocation used by the angelic presence. And it is in that language that Marshall's middle name was given to him upon his initiation in the desert back in the early 1980s. And I'm sure translations at that level are a little varied.
Yeah.
We're not talking about one meaning here, but the meaning that they gave in that word is messenger.
Okay.
Beyond means messenger.
Now that moment too in the desert, that's also, this stuff almost resonates like a movie at times, but however, I'll try to control myself. He said that he actually met a ring of beings, and he was kind of drawn in there, and it was like a nuclear explosion hit his whole body and being. He wouldn't wish it upon anybody.
Yeah. Well, it was an initiation of tremendous power, and Marshall thought it would really destroy him. It was that powerful. And this is not a common experience. This is not what everyone should be aspiring to. This is something that happens because a higher power wills it to be. And it's the initiation of the messenger.
Well, I must say, Reed, and that there again, we can perhaps leave it there. The initiation itself is yet another revelation people can look at. There's a body of, I understand and receive this material as a warning, a blessing, and a preparation. We've got the warning about the intervention. We've got the blessing of the steps to knowledge and a few other books around that. Relationships and higher purpose, fascinating set of revelations. And the blessing, the greater community spirituality, which is an expansion and a uniting of all of our religions and spirituality. And it's a miracle unfolding right while we've got our boots on the ground here.
It is. It's happening right here, right now. And the question again is, for those who are becoming aware of this, how does this strike you? Does this strike anything in you? Any sense of memory or awareness?
Right.
Because it's here to call those who were born into this time for this time, and to give them the tools they needed to contribute. And that's really the new message. That's its gift at this time, is to those first responders, those who are called to be forerunners. And there's an initiation for them as well. And I do really recommend those listening, do go listen to the revelation, the initiation, from the new message from God, because I'll tell you, I remember that one.
Yes,
I remember the first time I heard it. I'm sure many others do too. But it is the angelic presence from beyond the world speaking directly to you about you.
What you have to do here, purpose, meaning, and direction is another thread, right? That is being awakened. I've gone pretty much most of my life until I encountered this. People say, "Oh, purpose. What are you here for? Lighten up, get back to work." But right. Actually, and all the while thinking, I have a purpose here. I've got a calling that I need to respond to. So, and here we get the big download.
That's right. So, if you're that person who's always known that, who could never put that away, and join the fun, you had a seriousness, a sense of direction, and you've been waiting. You've been waiting for the thing to activate that, to give that, to manifest that in your life and give it shape and, you know, context and purpose and next steps. Then the new message could be that very thing.
Well, Reed Summers, son of Marshall Vion Summers in Boulder, Colorado, www.newmessage.org. Thank you so much for illuminating the landscape for us momentarily with this. And we'll see you soon. We'll have you back on the show, hopefully. And all the best to Marshall and your mother, Patricia.
Thank you, Scott. Wonderful to be with you and to have this conversation.
Excellent. All the best. We'll be in touch.
All right.
Very good, sir. Thank you.